Hello, welcome to my presentation about RNG and stuff. Um, yeah, let's just get right into it. So, why am I talking about this, right? Um, Basically, like in recent tournament matches, best of 100 stuff. Just like in my own tournament server, I've kind of noticed that RNG is like a pretty big factor nowadays, right? Um, and I was thinking about BP, and about my own like kind of tournament experience, right? Um, I was only thinking that like I kind of rarely see RNG being a thing, right? Like there are some like very specific scenarios where people would go for RNG that would almost never happen. Um, and I want to say also because the formats are quite different. Like there's never a game cap, and yeah, I think a lot of people kind of just like um or like okay, Skillshare. Um, but yeah, in this game it's quite different. Um, I see a lot of people go for RNG very often, especially in best of 100, which makes sense to a degree. But um, yeah, um, let's just get into it. So like, why would anyone go for RNG, right? Um, First of all, it's like a skill issue, right? If you're like worse than your opponent, um, then obviously it's gonna be hard to like actually score a point. So you just want to go for RNG to or like rely on RNG to actually get some points on the board, right? The game limit, game cap thing. It's whether or not game limits is good or not is for a different video, but definitely the inclusion of game caps has greatly increased the amount of RNG that there is in this game. Obviously because of the limitation of games, like I don't know, it speaks for itself. Is like yeah, you can't rely on somebody to fail within like 5 or 10 or 15 games, right? Um, so you kind of just have to um yeah, that at that point you just want to sell for RNG and try and see if you can roll the dice and yeah, get lucky before the games are over and you lose because you can score a point because that's usually how it goes in these kind of formats, that you're kind of forced to score. Um, and the last reason obviously is just for fun. Yeah, people do it for fun, and yeah, I mean that's just how they want to play. Just it's whatever. All right. So I can just like follow, right? Um, let me demonstrate how this goes from my personal experience, right? I have a runner, right? Which is always just call the person who is actively running away and trying to go for RNG, right? Because that's usually how the dynamic goes. It's like one person that like really wants to go for RNG, probably the worst player, probably um, you know, the guy that's not the most confident about winning the match, just relying on his skill, and then you have other guy who is super confident about winning on his skill, and kind of only wants to win with that, right? So what will happen is one guy will run away, and the other guy will follow, right? Runner and chaser, right? You guys got that, okay? Um, so the runner is gonna do is he's gonna position weirdly, right? What I mean with this is he's going for spots that um that are in between two spots. Circles is probably the simplest example. If anybody watched Full versus Quad on Best of 100, basically, or any other match that was the best 100 and had circles in it and people were trying to go for RNG, basically in circles you stand in the middle on like the speed 11 spot, right? That's kind of the weird positioning part, right? Um, so that you are in between the two actually speed 12 spots, and it's hard to kind of predict where he's gonna go, right? So that's like the first thing. Then he's doing the second thing, or the third thing, I mean, which is switching up the spots. That second, um, for um, for Hypixel, this is a lot more interesting in my opinion, because Hypixel, a lot of people are like 100 ping. I want to say most, like, I hate this. This sounds mean, but I want to say most better players are EU, or like further away from America. Um, so it's gonna be quite laggy, right? 100 ms, more than that, 200, 300, right? And for anybody to react to that, it's gonna be quite difficult, right? Um, I would even argue that if pulled off correctly, it should be unreactable. Um, so yeah. About that circles, about that circle scenario, you can also bait people into certain spots, right? So what Flo did is he stood in the spot, right? He already stood there once, and then he went like left or something. I don't fucking know. And it was that floor again, and he goes for the same thing again, right? And then just a bit early, before, like, it's not right before the color appears, but just like a tad bit more than that, right? Then he goes to the right. He goes like 2 blocks to the right, or like 1.5 blocks, something like that. Or like 1 block, I don't know. Gwap immediately sprints right, because she is reacting to Fwill going right. It makes sense, right? But then Fwill switched it up after like 1 or 2 blocks, right? And went to the left. Now, Gwab had to commit to the other side, while Fwill had his own side just for free and got like an extra color there. And also got the color that he needed. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, like, you can kind of play with baiting movement. You can kind of play with like those mind games, right? It's for a runner, at least in my opinion, pretty easy. It's kind of, or it's easier for runners to kind of get away from your opponent and try and score a point than it is for a chaser to kind of deny that from happening, right? Obviously, on that topic, it's also holy fuck, my voice. It's also important to think about that the runner is always gonna probably know where they're gonna go to, right? Unless you're just like mindlessly spamming A and D. Like, the runner is gonna know, okay, well, I'm gonna fake out right, and then I'm gonna go left. Whereas the other guy has to kind of adapt on the fly, right? Which is a lot harder than knowing where you're gonna go, right? So yeah. So for a chaser, he obviously has to react to the runner. So basically be constantly focusing on your opponent rather than the actual floor. As the positioning spots where the runner gets cornered, you can see this a lot happening on stripes and cross, where if somebody goes fully mid or fully outside very early into the round, the chaser can kind of sit in between mid and the far outside or the far inside, right? So that the chaser only has like two options basically. One is to just stay in that spot, right? Because if they go to one direction, like, it's a dead end, and if they go to the other direction, they run into the chaser. So that's kind of like the situation you want to set them up in, right? And then the chaser can just either react to the guy, kind of going towards him, which should be relatively, or like, easier, I would like to argue. Or the guy just stands still and he just runs towards him last second, right? But yeah, it's easier to react to it. when something like that happens. What a runner could do, which I've never seen before, is when they're in that position where they are being cornered, they bait the chaser out by going towards them and then switching it back up. But hey, who knows when that will happen? Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that the chaser will probably always have a really hard time, right? They might die to actual RNG because the runner is able to shake them off, but they can also lose because the they're like so focused on the runner that they kind of forgot about the colors and they kind of forgot about the spot that they're actually in, where they can die, which happens a lot. That goes into my next point. Okay, so like following can be hard. Like, so what? Okay, hear me out, right? This is gonna be very simple to explain, right? Okay, a runner, the Addison DJ, right? He's basically only relying on luck, right? But luck is a double-edged sword. We all know that, right? There's no player that's gonna get lucky 4 times in a row, right? And if that happens, well, fucking yeah. Basically, like, you're not the runner or the RNG guy is not the only one. Like, he's just flipping a coin, right? It's not like he's actively like attacking you. He's also attacking himself, right? So what I'm trying to say with this slide is basically like, if the chaser doesn't actually follow, then it's just a coin flip. But obviously, even if the runner wins that coin flip once, right? The chaser can probably get a point back with skill. If the games aren't game capped, that is probably. It depends on RNG, right? It's very situational. Depends on the format, but yeah. It's like if the chaser or like the guy who should be better at the game isn't actually following, then they should just win the majority of the times, right? But like, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that usually that's not happening. Usually the guys who are chasing sometimes die to trying to follow too hard. So yeah, the chaser should shoot. Yeah, here I wrote down. Chaser should theoretically win most of the time, even if they don't follow, because they have that skill factor in them. So yeah. Yeah. Oh, it just did not do the thing. Hold on. Hey, there we go. Okay. And if you don't win when you're better, yeah, GG next skill shoe. It's whatever. I think the optimal way to play it is to just play your own game. If you lose, you lose. You should win most of the times. Yeah, that's kind of it. You're kind of playing into the runner's hands when you are actively following them in a sense. Obviously, you're trying to stop their plans, but you're also kind of like doing what they want, right? So what if you just don't? No, you should just win, right? That's kind of what I'm trying to put down here in this video. It's definitely a mental thing, and I don't know how easy it is to get into this mental, because obviously me and myself, right? I think any really good player hates it when they get RNG, right? Because they know, like, it's not within their control, right? And we don't like that as really good players, right? So we just want to follow and we want to win everything, right? I think sometimes when you get your opponent in a corner, for example, that's the right time to follow. I think that's fine, right? But maybe when it's on stripes and they're just running around, right? Or it's cross, or um it's squares, right? Not grid squares. Um, I think you should just stand still, honestly. Just play your own game, focus on your own jumps. One, probably have the advantage already because of the fact that you're going for one more color, right? So statistically speaking, you should be making it ever so slightly more often, right? And you can just beat them with skill next game if you get unlucky. So, um, yeah, I think it's a big mental thing, but I feel like just chilling, standing still, playing your own game is not even that bad of an idea. Um, and I would even argue that it's probably the more optimal way to play the game. So yeah, um, thank you for watching our presentation.